composite chassis and futuristic looks, not to mention the high-tech duo of an electric and petrol engines, the BMW i8 is a futuristic stunner. But jump back more than 3 decades and the last mid-engine car to wear a BMW badge turned just as many heads when it was launched in 1978. So to find out how 30 years of evolution has affected the ultimate BMW sports car, we've brought a classic M1 along to meet the new i8. The BMW i8 combines a 1.5-litre 3-cylinder turbo from the Mini Cooper, which drives the rear wheels, with an electric motor driving the front axle. Under the engine cover of the M1 you'll find a much more traditional 3.5-litre 6-cylinder matched to a 5-speed ZF gearbox. Despite all its batteries, motors and accompanying technology, a composite chassis and carbon fibre reinforced plastic body means the i8 weighs just 1,485 kilograms and has a combined power output of 357 brake horsepower matched to a substantial 570 newton-meters of torque. The M1 has a metal space frame chassis clad in plastic body panels and weighs just 1,300 kilograms. The traditional BMW 6-cylinder engine produces 277 brake horsepower and 330 newton-meters of torque. Order an i8 today and you'll have to wait nearly 2 years for delivery, such is the demand for this near £100,000 BMW. In contrast, BMW struggled to sell the M1 in period, yet today with just 400 road cars ever produced, you'll need to fork out over £300,000 to get a mint example of this appreciating classic. Okay, so let's jump back over 30 years into the BMW M1, and when you look at this car on the outside, aside from the wheels and some of the vents and 70s style fins, the styling and the shape of this car could almost be launched today. It's such a futuristic shape. When you get inside, there's no doubt what decade you're in when you get inside the car. Very, very 70s in here. Now, away from all the BMW technology in the new i8, this car is very, very traditional. It's got a 6-cylinder typical BMW engine, 5-speed manual ZF gearbox. It's got a dogleg first gear, and you get into this car, and at low speed, the steering's very, very heavy. No power assistance, obviously. Once you get moving, actually it frees up and it's perfectly weighted. And this engine just really has to be worked hard, but when it's pulling from 5,000 to 6,000 RPM, really, really nice. Now this one's got a very slight misfire. It's got a mechanical fuel injection, this car, and this particular one we're driving is a very slight misfire, so you might hear that fluffing away, but it sounds really nice when it's up towards the top of the revs. And the gearbox itself is a lovely, lovely shift action. The pedals are really offset because of the size of the front wheels, so your legs are sort of pointing to the centre of the car, but the pedals themselves are perfectly set up for heel and toe. And in terms of the chassis and the feel of this car, it just feels like a really nicely balanced mid-engine car. Obviously we're not pushing it to the absolute limit, but it's just really, really nicely balanced. You can feel that there is a real balance between front and rear grip. And through these high-speed corner, there is some body roll, as you'd expect for a car of this period, but the front end's really positive. It turns in really, really nicely, and it's just a really, really nice car to drive. And now what you've got to bear in mind with this car is a space frame chassis, obviously rear-wheel drive mid-engines. The race pro car versions of this car had upwards of 800 horsepower, so massively more power than the road car. And you can feel that the chassis was designed to take a lot more power. With the sort of power this car's got, the chassis feels perfectly suited to it. Does it feel fast in modern terms? Well, it doesn't feel ridiculously fast. I mean, if you got into any sort of modern BMW performance car, it'd feel a lot quicker. What it does have is that really, really engaging sense that you want from a BMW. It's just really, really enjoyable to drive. I've got to say, I could happily drive this car all day long. It is an absolute joy to drive, and it's a real privilege to drive a car like this. But how does it compare to an i8? Let's jump forward 30 years and see how BMW's latest mid-engine supercar compares.
Because of its age and value, we didn't set a lap time in the M1, but it performed brilliantly around our test track. So let's find out how it compares to BMW's latest mid-engine supercar.
Okay, so jump forward more than 30 years into BMW's latest supercar, and it couldn't be more different than the M1 in here. Obviously the exterior styling is just simply sensational. I've never driven many cars at all ever that attract as much attention as this car does on the road. It's pretty spectacular styling, and inside it's pretty futuristic too. And obviously the first party piece of this car is doing what we're doing now, which is driving along completely silently in EV mode, just running off that electric motor which is driving the front axle. And there is real sense of something quite special about driving along in an electric car. And even in this mode, this car is around town more than fast enough. If you can keep it in electric mode, it feels more than quick enough. But we're going to stop that now as we're on the track. If you flick the gear lever across into sport mode, the engine fires up. Obviously it's a 3-cylinder engine from the Mini Cooper. Now, you'd never know that because BMW's piping in some really quite authentic 6-cylinder sounds into the cabin, almost a little bit reminiscent of being in the M1. And suddenly the performance takes on a whole new realm once you have both power units running, because effectively what BMW have done is very, very clever. There's no sense of needing to let the revs build in this car. Basically, as soon as you get on the throttle, you get both systems helping you. So the electric motor is torque filling effectively, just filling up so you get instant power as you get on the throttle, that instant acceleration of an electric with the extra grunt you get from a petrol engine. It's a really lovely combination. But what's it like around the track? Well, obviously, it doesn't have that raw mechanical sense of attachment to the road you get in the M1. The steering's very, very light, but it isn't vague at any point. It's light but not vague. Come around and start a lap now and go a little bit quicker. And the performance is really good. It's just so instant. The 6-speed automatic gearbox is really nice, and if you use the paddles, you get quite an authentic blip on the downshift and like a little chirrup as it changes up. But it's the fact that the power comes in so soon that's so engaging about this car. Body control is really good as you come through this loaded corner. As you come towards the exit of the corner, then the default setting of the car is to sort of just have a little bit of understeer on the exit of the corner, which is a bit alien for a BMW, but it's not a major problem, and it's only when you're really towards the limit. There's still plenty of grip in this car, performance is great, and that soundtrack inside the cabin is really, really interesting. It's a whole new world of fast car. It really isn't like any other BMW, but it is rather special. And the turn-in's still really good, so into this Unga corner it turns in really well. Body control's good, there's lots of grip it hangs on, just a little bit of understeer on the exit, hard on the power up to the S's. So about 85 miles an hour through the S's here. The body control and the change of direction's really good. But as I say, even though the steering's light, it's not vague. There's plenty of feel of what's going on, and you can really accurately place the car into the tight corners. And traction's really good in these low-speed corners, again, because you're effectively having four-wheel drive with the way the drivetrain works. It's a really, really great, very, very interesting road car. And actually on the track, it's perfectly enjoyable to drive on the track. It's not an out-and-out track car. It is a fantastic road car, but it is still quite enjoyable on the track. Very, very different from the M1, clearly, but you can see that both of them are really true BMWs at heart. It's not often that BMW breaks the mould and builds a mid-engine car. But when they do, they know how to make their mark. The M1 was conceived as a homologation special for racing and had a troubled birth, but today it's rightly revered as a stunning classic. Whereas the i8 is a technological showcase that packs masses of desirability. So while this pair are separated by more than 3 decades, they are simply two of the most stunning BMWs in the world. Click on the left to watch our video of a classic BMW M3 CSL, or click on the right-hand side to watch the new BMW M4 take on the Jaguar F-Type. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel by clicking on the Auto Express icon, or to watch our latest video, click on the video window.